by sort of being the intermediary, like talking to the administration and say, well, listen, there is a need to support a Chicano Studies program, and yes, there is a need to have a EOP program. Look at the figures. We would play the role of advocates for the students, and yet not being students.
The faculty voted almost unanimously to tell the president, the acting president, that he should start negotiations with the students.
So out of that came what is called the 12-point agreement. And in that 12-point agreement was the establishment, one of the points was the establishment of Pan-African Studies Department. The establishment of a Mexican-American Studies Department. That's what it was called at first. There were other points to the 12-point agreement as well.
So I think after that, I think we had clear sailing to some degree. And the question now was of hiring people that could develop the curriculum. Some of the students at that time were toying with the idea of hiring one of us to start the program, develop the curriculum, start the classes, as the blacks had done. I mean, they hired one of their own, one of the student leaders, to become chairman of the Pan-African Studies. And I think that we kind of thought about it, and we put our egos aside and came to the conclusion that we needed a very professional person, someone with the credentials, someone that would dedicate an awful lot of time, because we're students, we're temporary.
There was essentially a student community board or a committee that was put together rather hastily, and we had to then talk about what we thought the Chicano Studies Department should be like. We had no idea, because something like this never occurred before. There's no example, no place to go to that we could model it after. And most important, everybody agreed that we had to bring in somebody to be the chair of this department, and who should that person be. So they asked me to contact Rudy and see if he'd be interested in chairing the department.
Warren Furumoto pointed out to me that, if it was going to get done, it would probably be by a person like myself, who knew people in the community, who was active in the community, who was from the San Fernando Valley, and who had a PhD. By the process of elimination, how many people were around who had that background?
He gave us some conditions about his hiring, and he wanted full tenure.
Then I wanted a full professorship, because how are you going to have any power to tell people to go to hell if you didn't have tenure and you didn't have a full professorship? So consequently, for the program to succeed, I had to have both of them. If I didn't have both of them, I couldn't have succeeded, and I wouldn't have come.
So we all kind of agreed to do that, and we had essentially the Vice President of Academic Affairs come, and we discussed that, and he asked, who do we have in mind? We told him, and we told him what the conditions were, and he looked at all of us and says, you got it. we just about fell off our chairs. I couldn't believe it. So that's what you decide you wanted to do. We'll respect that.
The biggest challenge came from the Spanish department. The Spanish department did not want us. They saw us as a threat. In the fall of 1968, the Spanish department came out with an open letter to the campus that they didn't want EOP because they didn't want unqualified Chicanos coming to school here.
And we took it pretty personally, some of us. I mean, that faculty would be that adamant about discrediting the EOP, especially when some of those names are Spanish surnames, you know.
And they had a quasi-fascist demeanor to them because they didn't want Chicanos who would almost be considered a semi-native to the field. The administration wanted me to write up 10 course proposals and start the program on those 10 course proposals. Well, I realized that if I only had 10 classes, I would not have any more than 10 classes that I had to hit when the fire was hot. Jose Luis was a student, 17 years old. And he would sit there and he would watch me put 5x8 cards on the floor, you know, planning out the curriculum. Remember, at that time we were working with typewriters, and we weren't working with computers. So I had to type all of these course proposals. They weren't very long, but they were about 4 pages. There were 45 of them. And so I had to type them out. I wasn't getting the work done. The administration had given me a work study student. And so consequently, I didn't even have a secretary. So Julian gave me his assistant to help me type.
I can't believe it. I don't know how many weeks after that, it was not very many. I went to see him just you know, because I was anxious. So, what do you got put together? So he says, over here, and he had this stack, about that much, maybe 40 course proposals put together already, and I went through them and I said, they were almost all perfect. I mean, just the way he laid it out and what he wanted. And I was just stunned.
Rudy turned in all the course outlines. Every one of them was approved.
So next step was to look for faculty.
Under Rudy's leadership, he facilitated the creation of a group called Chicana Affairs Committee.
It had 3 elements. It had students, it had faculty, and it had community. But a student was a chairperson of that committee. So that committee, called Chicana Affairs Committee, is the one that got together, talked, decided, made decisions, and made their demands or recommendations to the administration. And we told the administration, this is the group that will speak on behalf of Chicanos and the Chicano community. It'll be this body. This is our chairperson.
Every faculty member that was being brought in to be considered for hire had to go through this committee to be interviewed.
And there I'm in a room full of students that were going to ask the questions. And that was the interview. Questions, not only about education, questions about my knowledge of the community.
And in the fall is when the Department of Chicano Studies started, I think maybe with 4 or 5 faculty, including my 2 colleagues here who came to this brand new department.
When I hit this campus, there was something else happening, and I'll never forget the first day because I lost all my paperwork and didn't have anything with me when I came, and all I seen was a room full of people that I had never seen so many Chicanos and Chicanas in one room together, my age more or less, and on a university campus, and they were all talking about and interacting.
That first class in '69, if I recall correctly, was probably close to 500 students coming in under special admissions. That was a shock. If you brought in 500 students at that time, students of color, students of different class, you dropped them into this campus, that was a big shock right there. This is a very new experience for our community in large numbers.
Most students in 1969 knew they were here, and they knew they had deficiencies, and they knew that the only way they were going to get through was with our help.
And I think one of the things that I remember